If you don't know who Dr. Michael Roizen is, he is one of the leading doctors in the country, probably the world. He is a champion for prevention of good health, and most of all, he's a great friend of Doro's and mine. So let me tell you about his resume. Dr. Roizen is an American anesthesiologist and internist. He's a best-selling author and chief wellness officer at the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Roizen is best known for creating the real age concept. He has authored or co-authored with Dr. Mehmet Oz 5 #1 New York Times bestsellers, including Real Age and 4 in the You series. Enormously in demand, his goal is to encourage Americans to make lifestyle changes, to exercise, and to just live healthier lives. Today, Dr. Roizen will be talking to all of us about the ins and outs of intermittent fasting. Things that he talks about are things that really he has researched and studied himself and does himself. So we are so thrilled to have Dr. Roizen with us here today. Welcome, Dr. Roizen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, and I'm going to challenge you today because this is a talk that I gave mostly at a wellness grand rounds. What I mean by mostly is I've changed a few slides, but this was given for medical professionals. So it's a challenge, if you will, and it's about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting means different things to different people. But before we start on this talk, which is really entitled Intermittent Fasting, is it the best way to keep blood sugar levels low? I'm going to challenge you with some multiple choice questions also as we go along. So you might want to get a pencil and paper to write some answers down if you want to. So when we go and look at this, by the way, my name is Mike Roizen, and I'm the Chief Wellness Officer Emeritus at the Cleveland Clinic. And when you look at it, the objectives I have is what is the best way to keep blood sugar levels low? We're going to talk about the 3 hazards for your body of having an increased blood sugar, which is why you want to keep them low. We'll talk about what foods increase blood sugar levels and why intermittent fasting can be done in a fashion that adds to the Mediterranean diet to promote your living longer, healthier, that is, to increase your prime years rather than increasing your years at the end of life. So there are 3 major problems from too high a blood sugar level. Those are 1, you accumulate fat in your middle. We call that omental because it hangs off your omentum off your stomach, or visceral fat. That can cause inflammation in you. 2, blood glucose attaches to proteins. So most diabetics know what hemoglobin A1C is. It's something they measure blood sugar by over a 90-day period. Well, what it really is a hemoglobin molecule with a sugar attached at the A1C position, the chemical name for the position where in the molecule it's attached. And what that does, excuse me, it causes the hemoglobin to not release oxygen in the normal fashion. That causes the diabetics to get foot ulcers or ankle ulcers, some kidney disease, heart disease, maybe even brain dysfunction. So we don't want those proteins to have the sugar attached because it causes dysfunctional proteins. That also attaches to the protein in arteries, which causes or leads to an increase in atherosclerosis. And the third result is it chronically results in decreased energy production from your mitochondria, which are in every cell. So it makes you more tired or more frail. What we're going to talk about is why this is good for you. So one of the benefits of keeping your blood sugar level low or intermittent fasting is it slows the rate of cancer development. It even, in this study of breast cancer patients recently published in April of this year, I guess it was published in July of this year, actually means that you have less chance of getting cancer if you follow this. So it's one of the joys of avoiding sugar. Not only do you do all those things we said about less fat in your middle, less protein dysfunction, and more energy at every year, but it also decreases your risk of things that are really bad, such as cancer. Um, so let's go and now talk about what foods increase blood sugar level. So this is a test question to you. One, is it all foods? Is it faster on an empty stomach in an easy to absorb form, such as sugar drinks, added simple sugars as syrups, or fruit without fiber, such as grapes? Or is there a special hazard to high fructose corn syrup, as is common in soft drinks? Well, yes, all three are true. Every food we have gets converted to sugar in your intestine or in your system. That's how you absorb them and turn them into energy. And yes, it's worse, and blood sugar levels, the peak levels, which correlate with um, what we call the protein dysfunction, as well as the added fat, are worse when you take blood sugar, fast sugar on an empty stomach, such as in sugar drinks that you eat without a meal. And yes, high fructose corn syrup has special hazards in, we think, increasing the risk of colon cancer and liver fibrosis, or what we call fatty liver disease. So, our rule number 4 for you is only eat foods that love you back. That is, you shouldn't eat simple sugars because they don't love you back. What do we mean by that? Well, you wouldn't marry someone who didn't love you, or you wouldn't marry someone, if you will, who was trying to kill you every day. You may love French fries, but they're trying to kill you every day. On the other hand, avocado, a great choice in a food. It loves your body back. So the key in eating is really to eat foods that you love, but that love you back. So, what is intermittent fasting? What is a healthful goal of intermittent fasting? Is there a way of doing intermittent fasting more healthfully than others? And how good are the data in eating in tune with your circadian rhythm, which means with the sun? Those are the areas we're going to cover. Now, my first question is, what was Elvis's major contribution? I'm going to give you a couple seconds, maybe almost 30 seconds, to write it down. What do you think Elvis's major contribution to America was, or to the world was? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, it wasn't banana and peanut butter sandwiches or even his music, but he was, and by the way, it was worth an awful lot, as you'll see. He got injected for the polio vaccine on TV when he went into the service. That's the Surgeon General giving him the polio vaccine. Prior to Elvis getting that in 1956 or so, 0.3% of Americans who were eligible for the polio vaccine got it. By the time 8 months after he got it, by the way, on all three major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, all did it live, as did PBS. There were only those four networks in that area. And guess what? Within 8 months, 83.2% of us who were eligible for polio vaccine had gotten it. Elvis wiped out polio. So, by the way, that was the first shot the Surgeon General had ever given. And you can see the head nurse in the Public Health Service was looking at the Surgeon General, worried about him passing out, not Elvis. It saves at least $55 billion a year in treatment for polio in America. So I don't want to minimize things you should do for your brain here. It isn't just keeping your blood sugar level low, which decreases inflammation, helps your brain, but get your flu shot and get your immunizations up to date. That's especially true at this time of year. Let's go back to intermittent fasting. So, what is intermittent fasting? What is the healthful goal of it? Is there a way of doing it more healthfully than others? How good are the data are eating in tune with the sun? What do we mean by eating in tune with the sun? We'll come to that in a few minutes. So, what is intermittent fasting? Is it not eating for 18 hours every 24 hours? Is it nothing but water for 2 or more days? Is it getting to ketosis in any way? Is it a mimicking diet that gets 750 calories a day for 5 days? Well, the answer is it's all of those. That is, people call intermittent fasting anything they want, but basically it is getting to ketosis anyway, and there are healthier ways than others. But why ketosis? We'll come to that in a few minutes too. But what ketosis does is it turns on a separate gene that helps you recycle old cells and make them new cells. So getting to ketosis is the key with intermittent fasting. And when you do it right, you get to ketosis, you recycle your old cells, they become young cells, and you become younger or stay younger that way. I'm an academic, so I disclosed my conflicts. I did write these books. I do earn a royalty from them. If you will, some people say, what's my main claim to fame? It is when Real Age came out, it displaced Harry Potter for 7 days on Amazon as #1. When You on a Diet came out, it displaced Harry Potter for 35 days as #1 on Amazon. And when You on a Diet came out, it displaced Harry Potter for 177 days as #1 on Amazon. And the new book is the What to Eat When cookbook and What to Eat When, which talk about what I'm going to talk about today. These are more of my disclosures shown another way. If you will, we've been in challenging times, and I'm not bragging or anything, but I just finished all my Christmas shopping. That is, we've had a crazy, challenging year, and that's part of intermittent fasting. It is a crazy thing that people started for weight loss, but has a much bigger benefit in helping you keep blood sugar levels low, in helping you get to ketosis. So you can't get to ketosis if you've got a high blood sugar. You get to ketosis, which means ketones are providing you energy. Your body thinks you're going to die. You're in a starvation state in that state. It goes into starvation mode, which means it starts recycling your old cells and using them for energy. That's a great thing because it means when you refeed, you're going to have young cells. So, is it the best way to keep blood sugar level low? Yes, because when you do that, you get to stay young longer. So let's go and now say the rule that we stated, you should only eat foods you can have that loving relationship with. And we're going to talk about why red meat, egg yolks, some fish, and cheese are bad, and why foods that increase your blood sugar quickly, like added sugar, syrups, and carbohydrates that are simple or stripped, are bad for you. So we already went over the 3 problems from too high a blood sugar level, but I want to repeat them because they're important. One is you accumulate fat in your middle. That causes inflammation in you. Inflammation means you're more likely to have heart disease, you're more likely to have a stroke, you're more likely to develop brain dysfunction, and you're more likely to develop cancers. The second problem is it attaches to proteins, and that causes dysfunction of your arteries, like causing atherosclerosis, and causes, if you will, hemoglobin and other proteins to not function normally. Here is what happens when in your artery. So this is the schematic of an artery, and these cells here, these small tile-like cells, are what we call endothelial cells. They line every artery or arteriole in your body. What holds these two together is a grout protein. It's like the grout in a bathtub tile that holds two tiles together. But that grout protein, when you get sugar on it, it weakens and tends to tear then when normal blood pressure pounds against the arteries. These red things, they're red cells. So let's see what happens when this goes on. So here it is, and there's a tear from that. And on that tear, you repair those tears with yellow stuff called LDL cholesterol, and they get inflamed over time because of too much sugar. Boom, it ruptured with inflammation. And on that rupture, these triangle things called platelets, and they attract a lattice network of clotting factors. They stop these red things from flowing. Those are red blood cells, and that's a heart attack or stroke or impotence or a wrinkle. Is a wrinkle on your skin any different than a heart attack? No, it's just the artery it was caused in. And what started it all? That's right, it was too high a blood sugar level, which attached to that grout protein, which weakened the junction between the two tile cells, which led to atherosclerosis. And then as you got inflammation, also from fat or too high a blood sugar level, that ruptured the plaque that led to the heart attack, stroke, or memory loss, or wrinkle, or impotence. It's all the same condition. That's why when we're physicians, we look at your ears very closely when we can get a chance to see you one on one, because a wrinkle in your ear is often the first sign of atherosclerosis. It's the most vulnerable artery. Or we ask men about impotence because that talks to us about the chance of them having, um, if you will, the chance of them having a heart attack or stroke or memory loss. It's the same process. It just happens a little earlier in that artery or those arteries. So that's the problem of both accumulating fat in the middle, which causes inflammation. It also is attacking to that grout protein, leading to atherosclerosis. So this is a person who has severe atherosclerosis. This is the white area is this is a what we call a coronary arteriogram. It's a picture of of an artery of the heart, and this is the left anterior descending artery, also called the widowmaker artery. You see, he had severe indentation. That's severe atherosclerosis, and he doesn't have many collaterals. In fact, this person in 1996, and this is largely before we had stents or other things, was turned down for coronary bypass from a leading hospital, Johns Hopkins. He came to the Cleveland Clinic and he got turned down there too. And he said to his doctor, what am I to do? Am I just to die? I can't walk more than 5 steps without chest pain. And his doc said, no, you've got a new job. It's to take care of yourself. I want you to walk 5,000 times, 2 steps. So walk 10,000 steps a day, but 2 steps at a time until you can do more. I want you to change your diet and eliminate those 5 foods: simple sugar, added syrups, stripped or simple carbohydrates, non 100% whole grain carbohydrates, foods with saturated fat, and in that era, we don't have them anymore, but foods with trans fat. I want you to meditate 15 minutes a day, and if you smoke, quit smoking. And he did that, and this is the arteriogram done the same way, same x-ray machine 2 years later, as you see, 2.5 years later. As you see, he revascularized that artery, and you'll notice there are a lot more collaterals here. This one is here, etc. So you see he's got a lot more functioning arteries. You get to reverse anything you've done before. You get a do-over. So part of the reason we're talking today is not just so you start today and have to suffer with what you've had, but you get to make yourself younger, you get to make your arteries younger, everything you get to make younger. So the three major problems again, you can probably tell them to me. One, you accumulate fat. Two, and by the way, that causes inflammation. Two, you get proteins of malfunction that causes atherosclerosis. And three, you result in decreased energy. So this is a schematic of your mitochondria, and there are many mitochondria, thousands of them per cell, but they're an energy transfer. You put in fat or sugar at this end, and out this end comes ATP, which gives you more energy. So what is the worst day for our mitochondria? What's the worst day for our energy? It's either Super Bowl Sunday or Thanksgiving, because we put too much sugar in here. That causes free radical damage, which makes our mitochondria older and gives us less energy. But if you eat smaller meals and don't eat straight sugar, you have fewer errors. So, if you will, you have more energy at every age. That's called rejuvenation. So normally when cells are damaged or wear out, they make their own replacements, and like a repeatedly duplicated photocopy, the cells degrade with each reproduction. Slowing aging, eating smaller meals, less straight sugar at meals, eating in a fashion that doesn't raise your blood sugar, reduces this degradation of your cells and lets you have more energy. But as I've said, I obviously have a versus, something else is here, and we'll get to that in a second. So we went through the two major problems, the three major problems. One is you accumulate fat in your middle. Two is you cause proteins dysfunction. And three is you have decreased energy. This is the decreased energy. And what really matters to chronic disease is that you get to those normals that we call 6+2 normals. And I'll come to that in a second. But let me show you what happens if you do that. That is, if you get to a normal blood sugar, which is one of those six, a normal blood pressure, a normal weight for your height. In fact, you can be overweight but not obese. So you can have a body mass index up to 30. It just can't be obese, which is greater than 30 in the body mass index scale. You have only 10 to 20% of the risk of all others for chronic disease. So this has been shown in the Medicare database for all the Chicago Public Employees Unions in the 40s. It's been confirmed recently with the Nurses' Health Study. Those nurses who got to 6+2 normals, even 5 of those 6+2 normals, had only 10 to 20% of the risk of developing chronic disease of all others. Unfortunately, our nurses, who should be the ones who know best, only 4% of them got even 5 of the 6 normals. What about men? Well, we're worse. In the Swedish men's study, only 1%, not even 4%, got to the 5 of the 6. And in the USA as a whole, why are we so expensive? Because 97.3% of us over the age of 18 have only 5 of those behaviors. That is, only 2.7% of us have the 5 healthy behaviors and get to the 5 outcomes, 5 of the 6 outcomes. And by the time we hit Medicare age, it's less than 1%, 0.6%. But whether you do it or not is your choice. You can do this. So what are they? Just to show you, one of them is blood pressure. We have 150 approved blood pressure medicines. Whether you do it with approved medication or whether you do it with lifestyle, you still have a reduction in chronic disease. It is having that body mass index that is not obese or waist less than half your height. How do you measure your waist? You put a tape measure around at your belly button, you suck in, and it should be less than your height in inches, less than half of your height in inches. This one we're talking about is a fasting blood sugar, keeping your blood sugar and your hemoglobin A1C low. Having an LDL cholesterol, that is the lousy cholesterol, less than 100, or if you've got risk factors for coronary disease like a bad family history, less than 70. It is having no cotinine tobacco end products in your urine. That's often found with secondhand smoke as well. So you don't want to be around smokers. And it's doing a stress management program. Those are the 6. When you do that, you not only decrease your risk of chronic disease, but you also can reduce the risk of a cancer having its way with you. In addition, you reduce your risk of the dementia by 60% independent of your genes. Let me show you that. During a median follow-up in these 2 groups, about 600 people in the 2 groups, about 15% developed dementia by the time they were 85. The pooled hazard ratio, which means your chance of getting it, was reduced 27% or by each healthy behavior you did. And compared to people who had 0 to 1 healthy lifestyle factors, Alzheimer's dementia was 37% less in those who had 2 or 3 and 60% lower in those who did 4 or 5, independent of your genes. And in fact, if you follow the diet rigorously, you reduce your risk just from following the diet alone by 60%. It's still a great joy of making sure you keep your blood sugar level low is in fact keeping your brain functioning longer. So we've said nutrition is the most important factor, and there are 4 major aspects, is it? Who? It's you. What you put in your mouth is up to you. No one forces you or force feeds you. You get to choose what you put in you. 2, it is only eat food that loves you back and a few supplements, if you will, such as a multivitamin. 3, when you want to eat in concert with your circadian rhythm. What does that mean? Well, the sun changes our insulin sensitivity, just like it changes your ability to go to bed or not. That is, you want to go to bed when the sun sets because of your melatonin levels. It changes that hormone. Well, it also changes your insulin, such that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie in the test tube. But in your body, a calorie in the morning is like 9/10 of a calorie compared to a calorie in the evening, which is 1.05 calories. So eating the same amount of food in the morning, you lose weight compared to eating it in the evening. And 3 and 4, I'm sorry, is the technique of preparation. You want to learn how to prepare food so it tastes great to you. So, in one of the keys in preventing your brain dysfunction is to manage stress, to have friends and purpose. Another one is to do the 4 components of physical activity. But when we get to food, and by the way, doing speed of processing games, which means challenging your kids on games or grandkids. But for food, it is eating salmon or ocean trout or getting 900 milligrams of fish oil and eating only when the sun is up. Those are key to preventing brain dysfunction. So when you look in your refrigerator, think of it as having a lot of clocks and you want to eat more early in the day, less later. And that's the thesis and the data that caused us to write what to eat when. Your nutritional circadian rhythm means that you become more insulin resistant the later in your day, which means you want to eat earlier while you're awake and less later. And it means more sugar stays in your blood if you eat later in the day. That is what insulin resistance does. Is insulin's like a mailman that takes sugar from your blood and puts it into your cells. You don't want it in your blood, you want it in your cells. If you become insulin resistant, it resists the sugar going into your cells, into that mailbox. So you leave more in your blood, which ages you and causes inflammation in you and causes you to gain weight, as well as causing you brain dysfunction. So that's why it means that when matters as much as what to aging. So if you eat just as I do between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., that works fine to turn off the growth genes in that period when you're not eating. And when you refeed yourself, you turn on the growth genes to make new, younger cells. So you harvest the cells and you make new ones. Believe it or not, the fruit fly, those little flies that you every now and then see on fruit, they're a great measure of how our cardiac system functions. And when they are fed, when they're fed every day, they have decreased sleep, they increase their age, and they tend to gain weight. When the feeding time is restricted, they sleep better, they have a younger age of their heart, and their weight goes down. Now, this is another study. This is the study that actually caused us to write the book. It was the fourth study. We only do things when there are four studies so that we're sure of reproduction of the data. But this is a study in Spain that compared people who ate early in the day a lot of calories versus eating later in the day a lot of calories. Same number of calories, just did they eat them early or late? And what happened is the group that ate early in the day, that is breakfast feeding group, lost weight. Did they lose a lot more? Yeah, they lost a heck of a lot more, 30% more weight than the group that ate most of the calories in the evening. Same number of calories, just whether they ate in the morning or the evening. So it turns out when matters as much as what, and you want to eat in a time restricted fashion, that is intermittent fasting, where you don't eat between 7 p.m. and 11 a.m., or if you will, that's 16 hours of not eating. You're eating over an 8-hour window between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And I'm going to show it to you in the schematic. When you eat sugar or carbohydrates in the day, you rapidly produce energy. If you're eating too much, you get it stored, and it gets stored as carbohydrates and then fat when you fill up your carbohydrate storage areas. And so it gets stored, and you're still producing energy. Sugar is a good energy source, but you don't want too much of it. Then when you stop eating, you bring out the, if you will, your glucose from your stores. So you feed your brain and your cells in the right fashion, keeping your blood sugar low. But when you run out of that, you then start to use fat. And that fat produces ketones. That's the genesis of ketosis. And when you're doing that, that helps your genes reset. So you want to use that fat to produce ketosis so you get younger. In a randomized crossover study, that means people started eating one way and then they went to the other and vice versa. 4 days of eating from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. only versus 4 days of eating the same calories, but eating at 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and 8 p.m. The longevity markers all changed for the better within 4 days. This is what intermittent fasting does. Eating in that type time window of 6 hours, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., allows you to have this cycle and recycling your cells, getting younger cells rather than older cells. So the gene function markers of aging, stem cell repair, and inflammation all improved within 4 days. It's really quite quickly. You can do this. Anyone can do this. So what does time-restricted feeding, what we call the Wen Way, and you can go to wenway.com to find out more about it, do for the quality and length of life? Well, after 10 to 14 hours, your liver runs out of glucose stores and you start using your fat stores. Your ketones turn on this recycling and they turn off growth. And then when you start to re-eat, you get this great new cells. So you get reduction in all your biomarkers of aging when you do this intermittent fasting. The message, the when way of intermittent fasting is doable and is healthy for you living long and young, for you getting a reboot to your middle age, to your prime years. And in animals, whether bacteria or yeast or worms or mice, they all live longer on the intermittent fasting shown as the dashed lines in all of these. And that's also what Longo did that regenerated stem cells, which are really important in repairing. So what he did was, if you will, 5 days a month is what he did, meaning they went to a intermittent fasting diet of 1,000 calories, 1,100 calories the first day, and then 750 calories the next 4 days. It's another way of doing intermittent fasting. And they regenerated their stem cells, which are important for repairing your body. So the holy grail of aging is repair. There are 14 areas of hot research. Some, as we've talked about, like mitochondrial wear and tear, may be able to be reproduced by just avoiding simple sugars and simple carbohydrates and eating smaller meals. But the key is having a great repair system. So when you have sunburn or heartburn, you call forth your stem cells to repair it. But you don't have infinite stem cells, and when you use them up, you can't use them to repair other things like a heart attack or stroke. So you want to save your stem cells as much as possible. What Longo's way of 5 days regenerated the stem cells and allowed you to have more stem cells so you could repair yourself much longer. And that's what a heart attack. So what happens? Why do you want to get to a hospital fast when you have a heart attack? It's to open up the blood supply, but it isn't just to regenerate the cells that are marginal. It's if you do it fast enough, your stem cells rush in and over a 6-week period become heart cells and function normally. So it's like you have young cells in that heart again. If you don't get to the hospital fast enough and don't open up the blood system, your stem cells can't get there in time, and then you have a less function and may develop heart failure over time. So the holy grail of aging is repair. And if we see this, so what happens? Well, you need two things to restore normal skin: adequate blood flow and pluripotent stem cells. So if you have a sunburn, what happens? You don't scar as long as you get your stem cells there. The blood flow is adequate because it comes from below and you don't burn it. But when you burn deep, you get a scar tissue forming. And that's a burn, and that's when blood flow is impeded and you get scars. Same thing occurs with your heart. If you have a heart attack, you normally will have stem cells come and repair it, and you get normal functioning. But if you don't restore blood flow in time, your stem cells can't get there, and you develop decreased functioning of your heart, so it doesn't pump blood normally. That's why you want to get there fast so you can restore your blood flow and so things function normally. What things cause a decreased ability to regenerate? It is too much protein and too much sugar. Now, we want protein most of the time. We don't want sugar most of the time, but they cause aging and disease. So that's why intermittently going on a very very low calorie diet without carbohydrates and without proteins is a good thing. And that's what Dr. Longo showed in the 5-day per month intermittent fast. So if we go over what are the commandments of doing the whenway.com, there are 10 commandments. One is eat only when the sun is out. Two is more early, less later. That is, you want to eat more early in the day, less later in the day. Three is you don't have to stereotype food. It's okay to have a salad for dinner and a cold pizza, so it's whole wheat pizza for breakfast. In fact, if you have a potato, like a sweet potato, and you put it in the refrigerator overnight, when it's cold, tastes the same, most people think, but it's resistant starch and it functions much more like fiber. So you can have that for breakfast. And if every one of us has had cold pizza, well, if you have cold whole wheat pizza, it functions as resistant starch too. It's fine to have for breakfast. The fourth thing is you can eat well in any situation. You say, life got in the way. I went to a party. Choose the foods you're going to eat, plan ahead, figure out how to do it so that you can eat well in every situation. And mistakes shouldn't disrail you. The sun comes up every morning. You can eat only when the sun is out and restart every day. 1 day or 2 days shouldn't disrail you. When you do this 4 days in a row, what you find is you'll have more energy, you'll sleep better at night, and you won't be hungry at night. So do it 4 days in a row. And remember, and I skipped a whole bunch of these commandments, but 10 is food is a relationship. Love what you eat and make sure it loves you back. Simple sugars don't love you back. Foods like red meat and pork and egg yolks and cheese, they don't love your body back. And remember, food and choices, every time you eat, you open up the refrigerator, think of it as loaded with clocks. Eat only when the sun is out or should be out, and eat 75% of your calories 8 or more hours before bedtime. And finish eating 3 hours before bedtime. I'm going to skip over these two because they just show what happens, but it basically can be shown here. When you eat this way, you harvest your old cells and repopulate yourself with new young cells that makes you younger. So you harvest your old cells when you get to ketosis, and then you recycle them into new young cells when you eat again. I want to make one more point. Don't sacrifice to help others without helping yourself. You can't, as Linda Bradley says, Dr. Bradley, who's a great gynecologist here at the Cleveland Clinic, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first and always, and then you'll be able to serve others. You can't pour if your cup is empty. Gratitude is a great way of managing stress. Thank people for helping you, even people who you don't think of as helping you, they are. And just say thank you to them. So, Trisha and Dora, thank you, as well as I should thank Adam and Brittany as well for helping me do this because I'm not real agile at, if you will, Zoom. How do you do this? Pick someone and write 3 specific memories of the time they used their unique strengths to contribute. People don't want to be praised, they want to act in ways that are praiseworthy. So stay away from generalities. Go to the specifics and write a story, not just a collection of facts. Have a beginning, the middle, and an end, and then send that story to the person who you really appreciate for what they do. All you have to do is repeat it once a day, and you will feel much better, as well as the people you send it to will feel much better. Remember, stress is the major cause of aging. Nutrition is number 2. And that's why we want you to manage stress. Gratitude is a great way of doing it. And also eat healthy by keeping your blood sugar low. So I want to thank the person who taught me a lot about cooking, Jim Perko, who taught me about preparing food that loves our bodies back. You can go and Jim teaches a cooking class, if you will, and in the kitchen with Chef Jim, that's Jim Perko and myself, and we do it once a week for our Cleveland Clinic site. And the key in eating healthy, especially if you want to eat a lot of vegetables as is healthiest for you, is to learn how to cut. And Jim Perko does that. So thank you very much. This has been a story of intermittent fasting. Is it the best way to keep blood sugar levels low? The answer is yes, because it keeps you healthy as well as keeping your blood sugar low. We talked about the 3 hazards for your body of increased blood sugar level: gaining fat in the middle, causing your proteins to dysfunction, and decreasing your energy level, as well as promoting chronic disease such as cancer. By keeping your blood sugar levels low, you decrease your chance of gaining weight in the middle. You decrease the risk to your proteins of dysfunctioning. You increase your energy level, and you decrease your chances of serious chronic disease. What foods increase blood sugar level? Every food. But it is true, it is sugar food, such as soft drinks eaten on an empty stomach, raise your blood sugar levels fast, which causes you disease. And why intermittent fasting can be done in a fashion that adds to the Mediterranean diet? That's because if you do it such that you get to ketosis when you're doing it and then eat healthy afterwards, you take old cells and you turn them into young cells. Thank you.
Okay. How can one man know as much as Dr. Roizen? I mean, it's like unbelievable.
I know.
But
He's
it's
amazing.
it's it's crazy. Again, with intermittent fasting, I wonder if a lot of you have experience with it or have tried intermittent fasting. I know I have, and it does seem to work. And I'm going to re-up it again with this idea that he talked about with eating with your circadian rhythm. That really is fascinating. And I love the definition of what he said for us is, when it's light you eat, when it's dark you don't. And I think that's a nice, clear instruction. So we'll be anxious to hear from a lot of you if you do try intermittent fasting, how that goes for you. And to have him at the conference today and to have everybody hear him just warms both doors of my heart.